Oh, go ahead.
Perfect.
Oh, go ahead. No, it's fine.
Oh no, I was just gonna say I have my qualms with Elon Musk, but I love that he has his kids like in official meetings and stuff. Like,
Yeah. We
we
need
need
more
more
of
of
that.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. When
It's
his kid
him.
told Trump to like shut up or whatever, I was like, that's hilarious. That was funny. It was great.
Oh, go ahead.
Perfect.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's fine.
Oh no,
So
I was
it's
just gonna
it's
say I
him,
have my
and
qualms.
then it is JD Vance. They are rocking it, bringing
Oh
kids
yeah.
in to all these official meetings and making young
Hmm.
dads feel seen. I have never felt more seen than in these past few months. So that's
Yeah.
great. Okay, well,
I
looks
Exactly.
like we're
realized.
live. So welcome back to Salty Saints. My name is Hayden Holm. Today we've got my brother Tanner with us. We're also joined by none other than Tember Harward. And today we are going to be tackling some of the questions that we got from Discord. So for those of you who don't know, we run a Discord called Dads Need Friends. And basically it's like a big virtual elders quorum. And as a part of that, we have this anonymous forum where anybody can just go and submit any question that they want. And so we're going to go take a peek at some of these questions. We'll talk about them, discuss them, and it should be a good time. So, without further ado, we'll start talking the first question.
Cool.
This is right here. Okay, this one has to deal with wards and why wards are feeling disconnected. So it says, I've been thinking that one of the reasons why ministering often fails is because people are not familiar to each other. I have the feeling that many units are not wards, but just a bunch of people attending church at the same building. I've noticed that there's a lack of engagement for ward activities overall, or people don't like to put the effort to actually know people. Trying to figure out a way to solve this and engage leadership in providing more opportunities for the ward to grow closer. So, what do we have to say about that? Tanner, why don't you go first and then we'll hear from Timber.
Well, that's kind of like a big problem to fix. It's just like
That's
an
massive.
overall morale problem with the church. I feel like the ward isn't fully engaging with the joy that the gospel can bring, right, in the community of
Maybe this
the
isn't
ward.
their ward isn't the Church of Joy. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, well, I don't know what's going on over there, but maybe you need to switch people around to some different callings or something because nobody seems very happy in that ward, right? So I don't know. Maybe you need some true conversions happening in the hearts of those members, and celebrating the joy of Christ to get them more actively involved in each other's lives. I think it's not a very helpful answer, but that's what I thought
So
initially.
your answer is just chop everybody, get new leadership in there, just pull an Elon,
Flush them
just
out. Yeah.
tying it back to Elon, just go all Doge. It's gonna be great. We're gonna get new leadership. We're gonna drain the swamp. It'll be fantastic. All right, Timber, what are you thinking?
Gonna make the word great again.
That's right.
Um,
The best it's ever been.
Oh man, that'd be some fiery testimony meetings. Did a Trump impersonation in your testimony. That
oh
that would
gosh.
liven things up. You get
Oh
some
yeah,
engagement there.
totally.
So yeah, my take on this is I don't know. It's a really complex issue, and I've had plenty of issues with it myself in my personal life. Luckily, I'm in a really pretty awesome ward right now, and still improvement to be made. But I've found personally that when it has to start from the ground up, in my opinion, it's not something that could just be dictated over the pulpit.
Mm.
And um, I mean, I think there needs to be a culture uh, from leadership of doing like activities, actually interacting with each other. Because I know in the Mormondom of Utah, it can be tough because there's a lot of people live in areas where they have a lot of family, so they just show up to church to get the sacrament and they go home and they never talk to anyone else the rest of the week.
Ooh. That's a
And
big
not so much.
issue. I can add my testimony to that one. Serving in Utah ward. So if this is a Utah ward, I did see that all over the place where young couples, even young families with kids, will check into the ward only at a surface level because they're like, well, I just mainly go hang out with my family most of the time. And so they spend most of their time outside the ward, just spending tons and tons of time with their family and not engaging with those in the ward. And where I have been away from my family for most of my adult life, it's been a little frustrating seeing that and that attitude because it's like, well, some of us here don't have family in town and would love to get to know other people and need friendship and things like that. But go ahead.
Exactly. Yeah. So, of course, every ward is different. I see that more commonly in the big LDS states, Utah,
Yeah.
Idaho, Arizona. But something I've made a goal to do is I just love to get to know my neighbors, and I like having cooking and having people over for dinner. And so my goal is to have as many people from the ward over to my place to have dinner as I can, and it's a
Yeah.
great way just to get to know people and build some real genuine relationships rather than just showing up on Sunday. So
Totally.
I think it's a twofold thing. We need to have leadership who create that culture, but then we need to create that culture ourselves and actually get out of our comfort zone and say hi to the people who live right next to us. So, um, yeah.
Okay.
But yeah.
I'm reminded of those. You remember those old church commercials that they used to run where they were like, they would show like a dad getting home from work and then his son with like a baseball glove kind of looking at him like, oh, and the dad's like about to go to a meeting. And then it shows him like playing ball with the son and it said, family, isn't it about time? I think that's exactly what we're getting at here. People need to
Yeah.
spend in person time with each other. And I think it comes from a problem. I listened to a podcast recently where they had this guy on who was saying, we don't have a loneliness epidemic, we have a convenience curse. And what he meant by that was that people are getting their oxytocin and their serotonin from social media nowadays. So they used to feel like a social hunger. Their body would actually give them a social hunger cue saying, you need to get out there, you need to make friends, you need to go and socialize. And now social media is giving you a weakened version of that chemical. So people are getting enough to get satiated, but not enough to be completely full. So it leaves them in this kind of weird limbo state where they don't really feel that need to get out there, to reach out, and to make friends like they used to. Because back in the day, if you were spending all day by yourself and you were getting lonely and stuff like that, your body would eventually start telling you, you need to get out here. But we're in this really dystopian kind of Twilight Zone era where everyone is just connected to their screen, just watching it 24/7 and saying, okay, I've got all my needs met, I don't need anybody else, and staying alone. Where we learn in the Bible that like it's not good for men to be alone that much. And I think this is what that brother is saying. Like we need to connect more. So I love both of your suggestions. I think people absolutely need to get into activities more. So at the ward leadership level, plan more activities. And not just like, the once a year, Christmas dinner or Christmas breakfast, try and shake them up, get them planning, get little groups together too. I've seen that as a super successful tool, like little sports groups, book clubs, family home evening groups. Those are great. The other thing that I would say, oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say to that point, the most successful ward I've been a part in, and the warming is great, but there's one before that was just phenomenal at this. They actually had neighborhood activities that were outside of the ward. It was the same group because almost everyone in the neighborhood was a part of the ward,
Yeah.
but a whole different set of people who were managing and creating these neighborhood-based activities to get to know everyone around them, which was really interesting to me because you'd have people in the church in these certain callings, creating activities and stuff like that. But then you'd have just other people who have no callings or who are in the nurseries or something, just creating neighborhood cookouts or neighborhood walkarounds, and things like that. And which goes to Tember's point, like you just have to get out there and engage with people. You don't have to wait till you have a calling or, until the church, sanctions a get together. You can just go out there and engage with your neighbors on a neighborly level. And then the religious, the ward will follow after that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
So what would your advice be to somebody who wants to get started getting to know their neighbor, but maybe doesn't know how to start that connection? Like it's almost like I'll bring it back to a missionary example. All right. So on the mission, there was almost like this unspoken rule that if you were going to contact somebody on the bus, you had to do it within like 30 seconds of sitting down next to them, or else there was like this awkward wall that formed between you where it was just like, well, I can't start now because then that would be weird and the timing is awkward and now I feel like a goober, you know. So what would your suggestions be?
So I'm a crazy awkward person anyway. So and that used to be the reason I didn't socialize in the past, because I didn't know how to. I was that weird and just no social skills. But I've gotten to the point where I'm just like, I'm just gonna embrace the weirdness and the awkwardness. And you know, we've had neighbors like that where it's like been meaning to talk to them but haven't, and it's gotten like I just get to the certain point where I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna make some of my Italian cookies. I'm gonna bring it over and say, hey, I want to have you guys over for dinner. We see you all the time, but we want to get to know you better, and just do that. And the worst they could say is no, and move on to the next neighbor. I don't know.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think to your like you're saying, Hayden, there on the on the mission, you have a 30-second rule for contacting on the bus. I think when you move into a neighborhood, it's like a 2-year rule. Like you get a little more time, before
Yeah.
it gets really awkward. But
Yeah.
if you can't make it in a year or two, then you should just do it anyways, and just publicly call it out, and be like,
Just
hey, I'm
go
a
for
loser
it.
who don't talk to people. I need to talk to you now and make friends. So. Yeah, I mean, and granted, I have a neighbor right across from here that we haven't talked to in a very long time. I don't even know if he knows or if he lives there still. I think it might be somebody new. So I think that if you really want to engage in a good ward, you just have to, like Temper said, make some cookies. Sourdough bread is a great way to get into people's doors. Anna's been great with that. She'll just bake a whole bunch of loaves and she'll just send the kids out and say, go give these to somebody in the neighborhood. And they'll just go knock on doors and drop off loaves. We've had a couple of friendships form that way. So just got to get out there.
Yeah.
So when are you gonna move up to Rexburg so I can get that sourdough?
I'll get you that dough. Yeah, I'll get you that bread.
Yeah.
Good.
So for us plebeians who don't have artisanal food just laying around in abundance, I found cookies are a great way to get to know people. Just like a simple plate of cookies, you just drop them off. You just say, hey, we're your neighbors. You get to know them. It's almost like a little screening, like a little pre-interview, a job interview screening where you're like, well, let's just see how this is going to be, But outside of that, I would say find couples that are in your phase of life at your local ward, and then invite them over. Bring them over, because you already have connection points. Like, hey, you have young kids. I have young kids. Are we best friends? You can start talking to them, having them over for dinner. You've already got conversation starters. You can already talk about like you can commiserate about like sleep training or your toddler destroying your house or things like that. You've got a lot of these like ready to go, pre-made conversation starters, So find somebody in your stage of life, invite them over, play games. If you're into board games, great, do that. If not, go like make a dinner, just do dinner with them. That's fine. Or go out to dinner, go bowling, go do something with these people. And that's how you can spend more time, which will satiate that need. But that'll bring the ward together. Now, there is another piece that I want to talk about this. I know we've been talking a lot about this one discussion point, but I think it's important. And I think we're in the age of meeting people where they're at. So if there are a lot of people that are online and that have a hard time prying themselves away from their phones, then as I've been getting more into Discord, I've started scratching my head and thinking like, why aren't more wards using Discord for their entire ward? Like, could you imagine that? Like, I know the church has come out with circles, but circles is the worst. Circle
sucks.
It's terrible. It's awful. They need to condemn circles. They need to just bury it and say, all right, we did our best on that one. This is our Zion's Bank. You remember like the bank? This is it.
Safety Society.
That's right.
Yeah,
we were not supposed to be here. We're going to just bury that and forget about it and adopt Discord or something like that. I know Facebook pages were big for a lot of wards, but then there was like this wave that came out, and I'm not sure if it was like official or just cultural, where more and more wards said, "Oh, we're not going to do that. We're not supposed to do that." I don't know if that was like area presidency training or something like that, but I noticed that when wards don't have like a social media presence, then that's going to lead to further disconnection, you know, because people aren't just going to randomly chat and text each other. But if you had like a Discord or something like that for your ward, that could be huge, because then you could set up channels for different activities. You could say, all right, well, I like going to like play pickleball or something like that. Does anyone want to come and join me? Or I'm going to go do this, and I'm looking to get into running. Does anyone know some good trails around here? And you could actually start setting up little groups within that Discord. And you could have channels for each organization. So Elders Quorum, Relief Society, and all of that. But that's the nerd in me saying, like, we might be able to reach out while these people are online. So, any other thoughts, or do you think we've solved this one?
I think that's pretty good. I'd say bare minimum, sit on your porch and wave at people as they walk by, or go for a walk around the neighborhood. Just
There you
wave.
go.
Baby steps. You can do that. Everyone can do that. Start there.
Baby steps,
And
make some friends.
I would also say, you know, if you're a sensitive guy like me who might get hurt easily through rejection, just be patient. It takes a lot of time to break unhealthy cultural norms that might be established. So I know I go through my ups and downs sometimes where I'm just like, I'm so tired of trying all the time and not many people reciprocating my efforts, but fruits do bear themselves eventually. So just be patient.
Totally
agree.
I would also add, just as like a final little sub note, try breaking the mold a little bit. And what I mean by that is I have found success getting to know my ward members as I've just challenged them and asked them to do things that the average person wouldn't. Like, I've asked some people to go on runs with me, to like run races and do like half marathons and stuff like that. And by doing that, I've actually made some really, really good friendships and relationships with people that have never run those races before. They're like, I'm not used to this. I'm not good at this. I can't do this. It's like, no, it's easy. We can do this. It's all right. But just by doing that small little thing, because you train together, you get to know each other really, really well. And that creates a fantastic bond. So I would say try thinking outside the box a little bit on that.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's move on to the second discussion point here, unless we have anything in the chat.
Spencer Harward says, "Preach, brethren." Is that he related
That's my
to
dad.
Temper?
That's my
really?
dad.
Hey, right on.
Awesome. Way to go.
Unless it's a different Spencer Howard, but I think I saw him text the video. I did not tell him I was going to be on here, so I'm kind of surprised he saw that.
There we
Hey,
go.
look at that.
All right. Anyone
Harambe
else?
Boy says, "I don't want to hang out with some lame dude," which I hear you. You don't want to hang out with lame dudes. I get that.
We see you, Harambe Boy. And also, Harambe Boy, if you're not in our Discord, come game with us. You got to come.
True.
You got to join us. We need to ride into virtual battle together. So
With Harambe, yeah.
with Harambe, he took a shot for us. It's about our turn. It's our turn to take a
It's our
shot.
turn to take a shot. That's funny.
All
Cool,
right.
what's next?
Next. Let's see. With conference coming up, I honestly do not like conference time. 10 hours of old people talking about generic topics of faith, love, repentance. These are all good topics, and every once in a while there is a banger talk from Elder Oaks and Holland, almost every time. At the same time, it almost seems pointless to watch because all it is watching them read a teleprompter. I know we are a global church and there are translation stuff, yada, 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 but I have a real hard time getting much of anything out of conference. I do the whole note-taking and going in with a question or concern and conference bingo, etc. at this point. It almost seems like the idea of conference is outdated. I would be open to a discussion on what are better and more effective ways in which the church could or should hold conferences in the future. I would also be open to learning what you guys do or others do during these 10 hours to make it meaningful. That was big. All right, we'll start with Tember on this one. Hopefully that didn't catch you off guard.
No, not at all. I mean, I can relate in a lot of ways to this because I'm like going through and reading the Doctrine and Covenants and stuff. You see like, oh, dang, there's all these awesome revelations. And it seems like each new month and year they're having these things come out, and it just makes it exciting, thinking that conference could potentially be that way. So I'm like, why is that not happening now? And I don't know. For me, on a personal level, I just realized if there was this new exciting stuff coming out of the time, would I have the mental and emotional bandwidth to actually keep applying all that? And I don't know. I don't know what the answer would be. And for me, there are definitely, going into conference takes preparation for me. And if I don't put in the preparation beforehand going into it, it's just a boring 10 hours. And like maybe I'll glean some stuff off of it. But also I go into it really just trying to focus on the little things that I need to make improvements on. Because so I mean, personally, I struggle with depression and anxiety. And so trying to go into conference, looking at all the little minutia of things that I should change or need to change about myself can be super overwhelming.
Right.
So I'm like, I get more out of conference when I realize, like, this is, in my mind, this is the Lord preparing me to get the little things right first, the foundational things right first. And then we'll get a lot more meat later, as the second coming comes closer. And so I'm like, that's the mentality I take, is like, if I'm not studying my scriptures like I should, what makes me think he's going to reveal, now we're going to start living consecration in its fullness and giving our full income to the bishop, like,
that's
I've
right.
got to get the other stuff down first. And so I don't know. I typically go in looking to, instead of writing down notes about every single talk and trying to get in everything, I, like this last conference, I was listening, trying to glean one thing, minor thing that I can work on to bring me a little closer to Christ these next 6 months.
Yeah.
And so I have two very simple goals that are going to make me stretch a little bit. And so, and that's what I got out of it. So I don't remember every single talk and what they said, and I think that's okay. I have the next 6 months to study them out. So
right.
And maybe get some more out of it. But I don't know. I don't know if that answers the question, but it's kind of,
no, I think that's very impactful. So basically, I guess if I'm understanding the question correctly, it seems like he's asking if we are just going to get these talks printed or sent out, on our phones in a couple of days, why do we have the need for a 10-hour meeting? Like, why is there a need for 10 hours where we're hearing people just read these talks to us when we could just get these talks? And I love what you said, talking about like approaching this with an attitude of preparation and saying, I'm not going to get overwhelmed. I'm going to try and find the one thing in here that's for me, that I need to take away. So it sounds like there may, for you, be an element here of personal revelation, where these meetings provide a space of personal revelation where that may not have existed just studying the talks out.
Yeah, and can I cut you off real quick?
Yeah.
I think to an additional answer to this guy's question is, do I think a lot of this is just church tradition? Yes. The way that we do this every April and every October, you can make arguments about, oh, well, it corresponds with Passover and it corresponds with this significant festival in the Hebrew calendar or whatever. I'm like, okay, that's kind of cool. But honestly, a lot of it is tradition. The format's tradition. And could they shake things up and make it a bit more exciting? I think they could. But
now there is another question.
Yeah.
The other question is, have you actually attended like an in-person conference at the conference center? Because I think that's a big game changer too. How was your experience attending? the actual conference in the center versus sitting at home?
Well, I mean, it's a huge difference in my opinion. I mean, before I joined the church, I was 21, working towards baptism, and I remember I attended conference. I had attended as a kid earlier in life, but
Yeah.
I remember attending that conference and being there in the conference center, feeling the spirit there, feeling the spirit of like the prophet walking in. I don't know. There's this tangible being with the saints, being with the brethren is so much more impactful than watching a TV screen.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's just the energy of being in a crowd. I think there's a lot more to it. But yeah, I remember that being at that conference as a investigator, more or less, was solidifying for my testimony. So.
Yeah. It's almost like you can feel the reverence in the room. Like you can, it feels different. I've been there before. You get, I feel like you get so much more out of it because it is so quiet. It's calm. The air conditioning is on point in there. It doesn't get hot or stuffy. You know, the sound system is huge. It's great. And then the talks, when they speak, you actually listen because you are completely prepared to listen, and you are in an environment that encourages listening and encourages that stillness. And I think that's the key, is the stillness of the conference center versus at home, which could be a takeaway. It's like, maybe if we could, maybe it could be more meaningful to you if you're able to get yourself into a state of stillness similar to the conference center. Now at home, that's going to be tough, especially if you got little kids running around, tearing the house down and stuff like that. That is really quite the feat. But Tanner, I think I cut you off. What were you going to say?
Oh, yeah. Well, I have a couple points on this. I think
Go for it.
It may sound like a bad idea to have 10 hours worth of stuff in a weekend, but if you really think about how global the church is, like, to do it any other way would be kind of a logistical nightmare, right? Because they have a bunch of different talks from all over, from leadership from all over the world, and they're all happening live. Like, that's just, like, logistically, you have to cram it into a weekend just to make everyone's lives run a bit easier.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of moving parts to filming and getting people together. Like, we can barely handle this silly little YouTube channel, like, I can't imagine putting together.
I am maxed out.
Yeah, for real. So I think, keep that in mind when you're watching conference, but also, like, to the point of it being too general or too, like, milquetoast when it comes to the messages. I think, like what Tember said, if you come prepared, you can find, that they're speaking to the foundation of where your deepest questions are coming from, so you can pull value from that. But also, like, you need to be, as a parent, you need to be aware of how your kids are reacting to these talks, right? And these talks need to be able to teach your children as well as you. So you need to be watching them not only for your own personal insight and reflection, but also taking it in and discussing with your kid right after, in between breaks, like, how did that make you feel? What did you think about that talk? And, like, showing them how to listen and how to process that information. And luckily, it's at a level where everyone in the world can take that in. And that's not an easy thing to do. I'm pretty sure they pour over their talks hundreds of times before they give them, right? So because it has to be a message that can, that everyone can understand and take into their lives and apply somehow. So it's tricky.
Yeah.
Now, I wish there was, we have general conference. It'd be awesome to have specific conference later on in the year where we can get into some deeper stuff. You know?
Where's the Second Coming conference? I need that, I'm ready for it. I'm just waiting for, like, that Second Coming conference where they're like, all right, this is for all of you who have done the homework. Now you can start checking your answers. We're going to put the answers on the board and stuff like that.
Yeah. When we can actually learn how to hide a collab, because, like, I want to know that.
Yeah.
I've been wanting to hide a collab for a really long time now.
That's right. Yeah. That's right.
That's
especially
awesome.
During the kids' bedtime. Okay, let's for me, let me talk about General Conference. I've always viewed General Conference a little bit differently. I view it as one of the holidays of the church. This is almost like our church has its own liturgical calendar. And this is basically, this is our Passover, right? This is our version of that. It connects us to our ancestors. It connects us to each other. And it's one of the days of the year where we sit down and enjoy the 3 R's of rest, relaxation, and revelation. And so I think conference is actually the way that I've been treating it. So if you are getting fed up with conference, I would say treat it more like a tradition, more like a holiday, more like something. And when I say holiday, I don't mean like going to the La Quinta with the kids at the pool. No, I'm saying like like treating this like a religious holiday, you know, that's full of symbolism and that's full of meaning. So I try and bake
like
foods
a Marriott.
right,
Like a
right.
Marriott instead of a
Like
La
a Marriott,
Quinta.
not the La
Yeah.
Quinta. Yeah. Get yourself a Marriott, you know, a Fairfield Inn. Ooh, yeah, no, I'm just kidding.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
but I try and bake foods that that are passed down from family recipes. So that came from my grandma, my great great grandma, and stuff like that. So we have a big book of family recipes. I try and make those, and I try and conscientiously prepare so that I can get revelation, but also I try and help my kids understand like this is something that's connecting us to our ancestors, like in our culture of the church, because I am a generational member, so I don't know how many generations at this point, but I think some of our ancestors date back to like the beginning of the church, and so for me, this is a way that I can connect my children in the link of in the chain of faith to their ancestors, and I think that can be really powerful.
That's cool.
The other liturgical holiday we have is Pioneer Day, so I mean that's cool too, and I think that is a criminally under-celebrated day of the year, and so but that's for another day. Anything else we want to say about conference? How to make it more meaningful? How do we change this from just viewing it as 10 hours of conference talks that we can just study on our own asynchronously later into something more meaningful? Any more thoughts? Okay, we'll move on to the next topic then. Okay, here we go. Anything from the chat that we need to pull up?
Oh, we got stuff. Yeah.
All right.
Stuff.
Pull up the chat.
Let's see. So we've got Jacob Samuelson is in the chat and says it's Tember. And he asks, I struggle with depression too. What helps you manage this as a father?
Ooh.
That's a good question.
I feel like I don't manage anything as a father. So.
How I manage. Yeah.
Well, if you're not doing it already, of course, get a good therapist and potentially get on a medication if that's needed, whether that's natural medication or synthetic or whatever. I know I have my crazy pills I got to take every day. And a lot in my personal opinion, for me, a lot of mental health issues stem from a lack of connection. So have healthy connection with your wife, with your kids, and with your brothers. You need that connection. You need to be able to get out and get refocus on the things that matter most, and spiritually, of course, going to the temple, things like that, having that eternal perspective rather than focusing on the negatives. For most of my life, and I still struggle with this to a degree, is I gravitate towards focusing on the glass half empty rather than seeing all the positives and the blessings in my life. And
you're in good company. we're running a channel called Salty Saints. Anyway, keep going.
But that could also mean salt of the earth. That's the way I see it.
A little double entendre. Yeah.
Right? So are you salty? Are you bitter? Or are you salty like you're being the salt of the earth? Huh? Which one?
Hey.
Well, there we go.
Yeah.
That was great.
So actually, that's what I thought the first time I saw your channel is the positive way. So, and then I was like,
which we totally meant.
That's right. Yeah.
Totally probably meant that.
Totally.
We're not smart enough to think about Timber.
Yeah.
I'm saltier more than I like to admit. So, yeah, so that's an important thing for me and that's coincidentally something I'm working through with my therapist right now, actually, is trying to see the blessings and my self-worth and the eternal perspective rather than just focusing on all the negatives in the world. And sometimes that means, if you're listening to too much talk radio and all the crap that's going on in politics and stuff, turn it off. Turn it
Yeah.
off and
Yeah.
just focus on the things that really matter. Like if listen to the talk radio is not allowing you to get in the mindset to where you're doing come follow me with your family, turn it off and do come follow me with your family. Whatever it is. So those things really help with my mental health. But yeah, definitely get out in nature, go spend time with your buddies, spend time with your wife and your kids, and in the temple. And those things help me out the most. So
Awesome. Tanner, what are your thoughts about this? I think this is a great question to ask to all fathers. Because I think
Yeah,
all fathers are at some point going to struggle with depression. I don't think this is unique.
Mhm.
Like, I think, and it may not be for as long, it may not be clinical depression, but there are going to be days where every father has
Yeah.
swings of depression where their mood just bottoms out. They feel hopeless and they're just like, or they just don't feel anything. And they're just like, I can't, I
Mhm.
got to keep going. I'm stuck. What are your thoughts,
Yeah.
Tanner?
Yeah, I think that there's difference between like depression and your life just being miserable, just having a crappy life at the moment. Like that
Yeah.
happens. I
Yeah.
think Tember gave great advice for if you're struggling with depression. What I would add, I mean, this is super like silly and somewhat practical for me, but YouTube has a lot of like motivational clips of men doing awesome things, just like,
Mm.
or even like animated, clips of people just being awesome. And sometimes you get the right playlist of videos of guys just doing great things. It'll boost you up and get you out of your bed. But on a more like practical, more mature approach, I think I have this thing with when it comes to like parenthood and fatherhood is that I need to remind myself often that I'm no longer the main character. Like that's gone. It's gone the
Mhm.
second I helped create a child. So once my child came into the world and all my children came in, like I am no longer the main character. Like my children's souls live in the house of tomorrow, which is a place I cannot visit, right? Is what Khalil Gibran
Mhm.
says about it. So
Yeah.
you can help them grow, but your whole life should be focused on your children and raising them right and giving them what they need. And when I switch my mentality to that, which is a very difficult thing to do almost every day,
Yeah.
I find myself more fulfilled and more driven in my purpose. So I don't know. The real question is how you do that smoothly and seamlessly. Like that's a bigger question. I don't have the answer to that one though. If you can just like find yourself stepping into that mentality of like, I'm here for my kids and my wife. I'm going to do what needs to get done, and I'm okay with that sacrifice, then life becomes insanely satisfying.
Mm. Okay,
That's what
so
I
you're
say to that.
saying like pursuing your duty gives you traction. Is
Yeah,
that more like
100%.
it's like that can, and maybe that means emotional and mental traction. And maybe that means like not immediately. Maybe that means like you might have to hang in there, but that wave will crash eventually. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I like that. There was this book written by Thomas Saz a while back. He's a psychiatrist, and I don't agree with everything in the book, but the book is titled "The Myth of Mental Illness," and he's not saying that mental illness isn't real. The point that he makes in the book is the language that we use around mental illness, and so he says by framing it as a mental illness, he likes to call it a mental disorder. By framing it like a mental illness,
Mhm.
then people begin to cast themselves into characters of patients and doctors, and they view mental illness as something that is caught like the flu, where it's like, oh man, one day I just got the flu, where behavior has no impact, or very minimal impact on you actually catching that. And so the main premise of the book was him saying like, your behaviors are going to have an impact to some degree on your overall mental well-being. And so it's just a call to action to, just like what Timber was saying, if there are things that are toxic in your life, to review your behaviors and say, are
Mhm.
these dragging me down right now? And if so, I need to cut that out of my life. Like, am I spending too much time doom scrolling? Am I spending too much time on social media? Is that killing me on the inside? I need to cut that out, and I need to get back on track because I can't feel anything right now, and that scares me.
Can I just interject something
Go
in
for
here?
it. Totally.
It's like the word in Greek for repentance is metanoeo, right?
Yeah.
Which means it means to have a change of mind, right?
Yeah.
And so I don't think repentance necessarily means to, to distance yourself from sin and turn from sin, although that's how we, colloquially, I'm not saying that word right. Think
I
of
got
it.
you. Yeah, I got you.
Anyway, that word. But it can also mean to change your state of mind to have a broader or clearer perspective on X, Y, or Z. And as someone who struggles with mental health issues, I think we can repent of having that negative mindset, change our perspective to be more positive, and that's
Totally.
a form of repentance as well.
Yeah, I love that.
So anyway,
absolutely.
Well, to tie it in, I am working in the middle of this right now. I'm working on a video, and I don't want to give too much away, but I think this is important. So there are two main father figures in Lord of the Rings, and they both handle different. They have very, very, very similar stories, and they both handle them incredibly different. So there's Denethor and there's Theoden, and both of them have almost identical challenges. So both of them are rulers of men. Both of them face the loss of a son. Both of them face overwhelming forces of darkness at their door. And both of them face moments of despair. Both of them also face toxic influences in their lives. So for Denethor, it was the Palantir. So he was actually those seer stones, that Sauron was using to control Saruman. He actually was able to warp Denethor's perception of reality, and that kind of drove him further into madness. With Theoden, it was Grima. Grima was manipulating him. He was playing complete psychological warfare and accentuating his weaknesses, making him view himself as this frail and fragile old man who couldn't do anything, and completely made him dependent on Grima. And so the video that I'm creating right now is going to outline how those men handled their different situations and how Theoden was able to overcome that and become an unbreakable king, where Denethor pursued the path of despair, similar to what Tember was saying, and met a fiery grave. So I don't want to spoil it too much, but there is some fascinating parallels there. Any other chats?
You're such a nerd.
Yeah, I am. I am.
Yeah, there's a lot going on in the
going
on in the chat here, so I'll dive in here. Nursery Leaders Unite is in. That's awesome. Good to see you. And Ruben Landon Dante said hello and yes like 4 times, which is awesome. And I think he is also the LDS XRLD, because he said, "Hi, sorry, this is my more avatar account."
Okay.
And then he has some great comments. I don't know if we can read them all because they're a lot. And it's quite we need to have him on the show or something, because it's I don't know if I understand all these comments.
All right, we'll get out our interpreters and we'll try and understand.
Yeah, so one of them, this is probably when we were talking about conference. It says, the higher the vibe, the higher the time dilation, which everyone and everyone can bend time, space, and motion in the second coming, the quickening into the fullness of time. Duh. Okay.
Okay.
I hear you. We need to think about this.
Yeah.
These things need to be received verbally, I think. So that's awesome. Yeah, and he mentions a couple other things. This one was cool about Satan. There are 2 parallel languages and everything. Satan is not a lie. He is a perfected black mirror. So I was like, oh, that's interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Sword of Laban is here, which is great. Good to see you, buddy. And he is looking forward to the Lord of the Rings video.
Yeet. Yeah, I'm still working on the script. I am drowning in the depths of Tolkien, but I'm making progress.
It's all right.
That's a good place to drown in. Tolkien's freaking awesome.
He's amazing.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
Any other chats, or was that it?
Oh, no, that's good.
All right. Okay, this is the last one. You ready? Okay, this one, get your waders on because this one is deep. Okay. All right. I came home early from my mission. I was worthy and working hard, but my mental health couldn't handle the stress. Came home, got the help I needed, but it took a couple years for everything to pan out. I had restarted my life, went back to school while doing some therapy, and the mission was solidly in the rear view by the time I was probably in a position I could handle it. In that time, I feel like I was where the Lord wanted me to be. However, it itches at me, that feeling of inadequacy, of not serving the full 2 years. Went to a mission reunion years ago out of some stupid idea that it would somehow close off the mission experience. I went in, walked in the door, and there was some mission president's wife greeting people at the door. I was excited to see her, and when she got to me, she said something along the lines of, "You must be with the other mission president. They were down the hall." I responded, "No, I'm one of yours." She looked me up and down, and I don't think I registered her short response. She moved down the line, and I walked into the chapel. In the end, one person recognized me and said hi while I sat alone. They sang songs I didn't know, and I felt like an outsider and an imposter. After years of getting married, graduating school, having a daughter, living across the nation, I still can't get over the brief span that was my mission and that single mission reunion. The feelings previously would come and go, but after several years of thinking I'd moved past it, the feelings of inadequacy have come back with a bit of fury. I could use some help and advice. All right, Tember, are you ready for this one? Did we kick it off to you last time? Tanner, you're up. You're up this time.
I think Tanner.
Okay, Tanner goes. You go, Tanner.
All right. Just don't worry about it. That's the short, TLDR. Like, don't worry about it. Serving 2 years, serving less. It's just not something. You're okay, buddy. Like it's all right. Going to, in more ways than one, going to a mission reunion was a big mistake. And not for the reasons you think. It's just not a good. I'm bitter. I don't know. I just don't see the value. And maybe I'm just a cranky person who didn't make a lot of friends on my mission, but I have never seen a huge appeal of revisiting, with mission reunions. And most of my friends that I made, my other missionary companions and stuff, have actually fallen away from the church since then, which is kind of a bummer. So
yeah,
if you're feeling those feelings of inadequacy. And I'm sorry that you had that happen with your mission president's wife and things like that, because that shouldn't happen. That was just bad form on their part. But if you're feeling inadequate for not serving, serving a mission is small potatoes compared to what you're doing now, right? Assuming that you are having a family or striving to have a family, that's just so much more important than what you've done before. A mission is a great training ground and a great place to find your own personal conversion and to help others. But there's nothing more important than raising a family in the church and, helping them come to God as you do so. So, take pride in the current mission you have, and just let the past be the past. Just if you can, the goal, and maybe you need to practice this, is just saying, yeah, I didn't serve a full 2-year mission, and that's okay. It's not a big deal. You just say that a couple times, just repeat that and just see if you can let it wash away with the tides of time, because it's not everyone in this little panel here agrees that it's just not that big of a deal. It's okay. So that's probably not super helpful, but that's how I feel about it.
So did you just say rub some dirt on it, walk it off? Is that your advice?
Not so much in that sense. It's just I can empathize. It's tough. And I can understand that the culture is toxic in that way. There's a lot of negative extensions from the culture into missionary work, where it's either come back honorable or don't come back at all. I've heard some people have been told it's okay for you to tell yourself and to remind yourself that that's not okay. That's toxic. That's bad. Yeah. And you did your best and you gave it a shot. Even getting out of the MTC is you should pat yourself on the back for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You dedicated so much effort to being more for Christ, than most people.
Well, the application process itself is a monumental task. And it's just getting yourself worthy, going through all the interviews, filling out the application, the waiting period, figuring out where you're going to go. All of that is huge.
Yeah.
100%. So that's why I say I empathize, and you know, you don't have to rub dirt in it, but you can let it heal. You know, it's
Mm,
okay to let go of it and not feel inadequate around it. You have my permission, I guess, and that's a, you know, not that you needed it.
yeah.
It's okay to walk away from it.
Okay. All right, Timber. Are you along the same lines as Tanner? It's just like, hey, it happened. It was unfortunate, but move on. Or what are your thoughts?
My thoughts are this: whether you came home early because of a mental health, physical health, worthiness issue, it doesn't matter. Um, I think, in my personal opinion, I think the mission is more or less just training wheels for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And once you get off, that's when you really start to ride that bike without the training wheels. And no matter how long you served for, whether you were out there for a week or for the full 2 years, uh, for me personally, I've learned more from my mission after my mission than while I was on my mission. And I honestly, my mission was pretty miserable most of the time. I did not enjoy my mission. I
Well,
had a
they are
couple
the
compa-
best kept secrets of the church. Just to interrupt there. Like
Yeah, it's
everyone
not
has a really
easy.
tough time on their mission.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
I struggled with that for a while, getting home from my mission and everyone talking about, oh, it's the best 2 years. I did all this and that and had these
yeah.
amazing spiritual experiences. And I was
And they
like,
have that theme song, "The Best 2 Years," and you're
yeah,
just like,
yeah.
oh,
And
that
I'm
was
like,
hard.
that wasn't mine at all. I struggled with a lot of my companions, and
Yes,
like, I didn't struggle because I was a disobedient missionary who wanted to be home
right.
and just wanted to goof around. I was obedient. I worked hard. I just didn't see a lot of the teaching that I was hoping to get out of it, and I didn't realize I'd be after fighting half of my companions about getting up in the morning. You know, like
The
the
struggle is
mission.
real. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I had Hayden Carroll is probably my favorite companion. I love that guy,
yeah.
um, but anyway, so it's not how long or what you did on your mission, it's what you do afterward that matters. And like Tanner said, you take the knowledge that you got, the experience that you got from your mission, and you apply it to your relationship with your wife and with your kids and how you serve in your local community. um, and honestly, I think there are is my audio okay? Because I know I'm like lagging okay.
Yeah, you're good.
um, I think there are more important missions after your formal 2 year mission than your 2 year mission. I
Yeah.
like I've found callings in my life after my mission that I've really been able to pour myself into, that I think is more important for me to be engaged in than what I did on my 2 year mission.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I don't know. I just I think that's the least of your concerns, but yeah, again, with Tanner, I empathize with feelings of inadequacy and feeling like you didn't do enough. So I get that,
Mm.
but I think it's important to focus on the missions in front of you now that you can pour yourself into.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, well, and maybe this isn't the case, but feeling inadequate might be an indicator that, you know, you haven't fully forgive yourself, or,
hmm,
you know,
Yeah.
yeah,
So maybe
just
you're
yeah.
putting like some cultural pressure on yourself, that because that is a cultural call out. We should make a note on that. This is a cultural call out here.
No, I was
Is
taking
like
notes.
the undue pressure that we put on missionaries for
yeah,
staying out there the whole time. I remember there was a mission companion who threw his back out. Not a companion, but just somebody I knew on my mission, threw his back out like 6 months into the mission. So he had to go back. It was a herniated disc. He had to get a bunch of work done on him. And he told me he actually came back to the mission, and it was like a year later. And he said that he had to fight tooth and nail to get back onto the mission because everybody was like, no, it's okay. You can stay home. It's all right. You already did it. But he wanted to get back out there because A, he had a testimony, but B, there was this cultural pressure of everyone saying like, oh, you didn't make it, that viewing him as like a lesser person because he wasn't able to serve his entire term. And that is a complete cultural weed. And I understand where it came from. Like the pioneers, like they had to put a lot of pressure. They had to deal with a lot of pressure in their lives or they died, But I feel like a lot of that pressure has carried forward and it's created a cultural weed that is making us view problems as more important than people to be loved, And so I think I think that is one of the takeaways there. Is just like, hey, similar to Jordan Peterson has that rule, like if old memories still make you cry, write them down completely, and that
pretty good.
He says write them down because there is a lesson that you have not learned. If an old memory is still carrying an emotion, that emotion is telling you something. It's trying to teach you a lesson that you have not learned yet. And so write it down completely and there's going to be a lesson in there for you. I would say the other note is don't put too much onto church leaders. So I think a lot of times, then this is another cultural mindset, is that you always hear those stories about like an elder who goes into an interview with the mission president and the mission president looks at him and he says, "Elder, I just saw your future and you need to be an attorney, or you need to go and marry this type of person." And we almost view mission presidents, we put them on a big pedestal, and I had some of those, those perceptions when I went into my mission. And so like I would go into my, like quarterly or monthly or whatever interview with my mission president, and I'd be like expecting him to pull back the stars and to reveal the secrets of the universe to me. And I'd be like, "Hey, president," and he'd be like, he was this cool Argentine, love him to death, but he was like, "Elder Holm, how are you doing?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm good. I'm all right." He's like, "Are you getting along with your companion?" And I was like, "Uh-huh, yeah, we get along." Then he's like, "Great, grab a treat and head on out." And I was like, "Oh, okay,
That's it.
yeah,
That's all
let
you
me
get.
just go," and that was it, and that was pretty much every interview I had. And in my last interview, I was bold enough to say like, "President, what do you think I should do? Like what you know me better than anyone else. What do you think I should do for college?" And he sat me down. I'll always remember this. He looked me dead in the eye. He was like, "Elder Holm, that is a decision for you to make." And I was like, whoa, look at that. So he realized like, and at the time I thought like, man, I've been gypped. I gave 2 years hoping that I'd figure out, what I was supposed to do in all of this. But the older I get, the more I realize he was putting his confidence in me, saying, "You know what? You have all the answers you need, and you know how to do this. Go and do it." And so I think taking them off of that pedestal is key, and realizing that they are busy people. They have their own lives. She probably forgot you because they deal with so many missionaries. And so I would say approach it with a little bit of grace and understanding for your mission president and his wife, because they've been through a lot. They're just people too. But anything else?
I would just say like, do you honestly think that God is, like still thinking about it? Because I don't think so. I think
Right. Well, those
God
feelings don't come from, those aren't divine feelings that he's experiencing. Like the feeling like frustrated and fury and anger and all that. Those aren't fruits of the Spirit. So those are seeds of the adversary that have been planted into your heart. And if you allow God, he will help you to pull those out and say like, let's get those out.
Amen.
Let's heal. Any chats that we need to catch up on?
Oh, yes. Here we go. Let's see. Spencer Harward, Tember Dad, says, "I like that concept for the biannual Gen Cons or our religious holidays for us saints. Very similar to Passover and Rosh Hashanah." Yeah, let's make it more like a holiday, Let's put some more positive culture into it. I think that'd be awesome. LDS RLD says the first law of thermodynamics is the alpha and the omega. Energy cannot be created or destroyed. The world of ashes to ashes is therefore the world of illusions. I
Man, that's some
maybe I
Doctor
forgot to
Strange
take my
language right
ayahuasca
there.
before
Yeah.
this. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not ready to swim in the deep end of the pool.
Yeah,
That's what I'm learning from his
We
comments.
need to be
here.
in a sweat lodge
So-
to understand that. Yeah. Get some
Yeah,
peyote.
for real.
Yeah.
Exactly. So he's got a lot more comments in here, which is awesome. He said, y'all be doing the most. That's why y'all the saints. Y'all doing much more than we would. Let's see. Sort of Laban says, anxiety is rampant these days. It's so hard. There's so many days, so many ways we can feel down on ourselves. Civil Maniac, this is in relation to missions. I think the irony of the best 2 years is that it shows how hard it is. Great movie. I need to find a way to watch it again. He's also the one I think I've been playing in chess and Dads Need Friends a lot. And he's just been beating me relentlessly lately. So good job, man. Sort of Laban mentions that he still has nightmares about being called back to his mission, which I have those too all the time.
struggle
you know?
is
Like,
real. No. I get that.
We need to study on that. You know?
All the time. Yeah, no, it's a real thing. Like especially in Paraguay, like the whole country took a nap from the hours of 1 to 4, and I served just before they made the change where you could set your own schedule. And so from the hours of 1 to 4, the hottest part of the day, we had to serve in the siesta. And so shirt and tie, like 100-degree weather, 100% humidity, and the members would just fill us up with soy meat and noodles, and so we'd be just like bloated like crazy. And so I wake up like in a cold sweat in the middle of the night. I'm just like I have these recurring nightmares where it's just like I'm back in the siesta. I'm on the streets. I'm looking around. Nobody's out there. Nobody wants to listen to us. And it's like, well, you got 4 hours of this. Go for it, you know. And I'm just like, no, I already did my time. I finished. I can't do this anymore. But yeah, no, the struggle is real.
That's awesome. Well, I think that catches up for the most. I mean, there's a couple more in there, but yeah, I think that catches us up for the most part there.
Awesome. Okay, well, I think we're going a little bit over the hour. If we've got, let me know if we've got anything else to talk about. If not, we'll call it.
Sound good? I think that's a good point.
All right, let's plug the Discord real quick. So for any of you watching who are not a part of the Discord, if you want us to talk about your questions, or if you want to hop on and talk with us, maybe some of these ayahuasca questions we could talk about, you know, and then hop on to dadsneedfriends.com, sign up for the Discord. It's completely free. We don't just game. We do game on Wednesdays, but it's not just gaming. We talk about marriage. We talk about our faith. We talk about things that dads struggle with. And so come on out. We actually have a surprisingly active community, despite the hosts not doing very much in it. But it's been amazing. I've actually made some really good friends, and that's how we got connected with Tember. So I mean, it's been awesome. So yeah, check us out, dadsneedfriends.com. Come talk with us, game with us, and until next time, I'm Hayden Holm. This is Tanner and Tember Harward. And this is Salty Saints. We'll see you next time.